What does it take to be a successful entrepreneur? A dangerous amount of coffee and a ton of grit. My name is Jason Tracy, and every week I interview business leaders to share their stories, life lessons, failures, and advice with you. Welcome to Coffee and Grit. What is up? What is up? What is up? Welcome back to another episode of Coffee and Grit. Man, I'm excited to get this intro out of the way. We've been warming up in conversation. I'm just excited to get going. I have Bernie DeSantis. I thought, man, like I've been sitting here thinking like Bernie Sanders, Ron DeSantis, like don't let me mess up this name. Like, come on.
You said that. I was like, do you have one or both of them on the show today?
One or both of them.
All the time.
I'm like, you have to get that all the time, but you can't forget this name. We have Bernie DeSantis in the studio today. He is the owner of Insignia Training Partners, and I'm excited to dive in and to talk. Like I said, we've had a really interesting kickoff, and so Bernie, welcome into the studio.
Thanks, Jason. I appreciate it. The opportunity to be here today.
Man, wading through the traffic and the construction today to be here.
Yeah, it was fun. I honestly don't leave my office all that often, so it's an adventure when I do. It's cool. I appreciate it.
I hear you. I don't leave my bubble here in Brighton very often either because everything is under construction.
Everything's under construction. It's that time of year. I am actually a believer that, oftentimes they don't have nearly as many construction projects going on as they say they do.
Yeah.
They just randomly move those barrels around everywhere because they have nowhere to store them.
They have nowhere to store them. Just put them out. We'll clear some road out on the expressway, throw them out there.
Absolutely. I mean,
the people are used to it anyways, right?
That's exactly right.
We know it's going to happen every summer, but it's so frustrating. Like, because it's like in business and stuff, right? Like we know we can go backwards to go forwards and everything. Like in change in life, we go backwards to go forwards. And it's like, okay, the roads are shut down. It's going to be a pain in the butt. I sit in this traffic, and at least the roads are nice. But then it's like for 2 years, and then they're back doing them again because, like, for some reason we've found ways to innovate everything, but we cannot innovate.
Can't figure out the roads.
I don't know anything about it, so I can't crap talk about it. But we cannot innovate roads for anything.
Well, I don't mind being an armchair quarterback about it. That's fine. It's terrible out there. Like if you're driving in the city, you can almost guarantee that you are going to be on a major highway at some point, and you are going to see some orange barrels. It doesn't matter every summer.
Orange barrels and red
barrels.
Lights in front of you.
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, at least you weren't coming from like the Ann Arbor way because they deconstructed a bridge down on Lee Road, and I've heard it takes an hour to move 5 minutes. So
I'm glad I missed that.
So don't go back that way. Go the other way.
Back on the east side.
So thank you again for coming all the way out of the bubble.
My pleasure.
Leading the way. So tell me about. Tell me about Insignia and training and how you got there and what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you the story since we have a little bit of time.
Yeah.
I started my journey 20 years ago. I graduated from Northwood University with a marketing degree. I went and got a marketing degree because I figured every product or service out there needs to be sold. I should have plenty of job opportunities. Ended up in sales, right? As most people with a marketing degree do. But I was very fortunate. I started working at Quicken Loans. I was a mortgage banker there. I did that for roughly about 6 months, but pretty quickly realized I did not want to make 100 phone calls a day. It wasn't what I wanted to do. But I had a lot of teammates that would come. They would ask me questions, right? We would talk about loan programs and qualifications, overcoming objections, whatever it may be. And through those conversations, they would go and they would find whatever success they were having on the phones. So a few months go by and, my leaders came to me and said, we're going to create this position. We'd like for you to apply for it. And the position was as a leadership development trainer. So I ended up interviewing for it, got it. And, I was the very first leadership development trainer at Quicken Loans. Wow. But it wasn't a traditional classroom trainer type role. I did a lot of, coordination and organization with some of the other leaders within the organization, Jay Farner and Bill Emerson, right? The CEO and president of sales. But what I ended up doing was getting into experiential training, and that was really, really fun. So we would take large groups, 10 to 15 leaders or up and coming leaders out to ropes courses and SWAT team trainings. And we would build these 8-hour immersive missions where they'd focus on all the skill sets that they use running a team every day, right? So, they would be team building, right? Teamwork and problem solving and just basic communication. And the things that come out of people when they're 3 stories up in the air or they have little rubber bullets flying by their head, right? You see how people naturally respond. So Monday morning rolls around and people would, come up to me and say, hey, that was a really great experience. I learned this about myself. I was able to go and have this conversation with my teammate, or,
Wow.
I was able to go home and talk with my wife about this, topic that we had a really hard time addressing. So that really lit my fire for learning and development. I really enjoy pouring into people and having them leave me better than they came to me. I didn't know that I had a skill for transferring knowledge, but, apparently my leaders saw that I did. And, we had some really great events. Roll around 2008, mortgage crunch. Who gets let go? Well, the guys who don't make revenue for their organization. They're usually one of the first ones, on their
What's so funny is they don't make revenue, but how much revenue are you actually probably making in that training and development?
Exactly. It's not always a straight line.
Yeah.
Right? And that's another thing. When you talk about learning and development, tying back to ROI isn't always the easiest thing, even though people know inherently that you have to train your people in order for them to get better, do better, be more.
Yeah.
So 2008 hit, I was let go. I continued my journey and stuck with call centers and sales organizations. I'll name a couple of them, but I'm not going to go into every detail about all of them, obviously. One of my stops along the way was I was selling facelifts over the phone. They did an infomercial late in the evening, and seniors would call in and they want to look young again and feel young again. And so we would set them up for consultations, and eventually we started selling facelifts sight unseen over the phone. That was very interesting.
That's so
very
interesting.
I worked for a BPO call center where we had just a multitude of different types of programs and clients. We had Sony, we had the Jitterbug cell phone, we had Select Quote life insurance, we had an SEO program, like you name it. Frito-Lay was one of the clients. At any given time, you could pick up the phone and be talking about a different product or service. You watch TV for an hour, probably 100 phone numbers flash across the screen, 25 to 30 of them.
I was going to say, I can see most of this like late night programming, TV shows.
Every time you see an 800 number come across the screen, that leads to someone somewhere, right? And usually it's a call center.
What you don't think of it is probably the same call center. Like
a lot
you
of
have this
cases.
one person answering the call for so many different
You would
companies.
be shocked at how often that happens.
It's insane.
You would be shocked. But the way that some of these IVRs are set up now and these scripting programs, like it flashes up on their screen before your call actually gets to them. They know who they're talking to, what they have to say, what the order is of the conversation. It's crazy. But I was director of training there. So it was my job to basically learn all of these different client programs, all of their different systems, everything about them, and then teach the new agents that they would onboard for these new clients. So it got to a point where, you can only learn so much. You can only do so much. But when it comes to learning and development, right, people only learn so many ways. And you can only communicate so many ways in a classroom type environment. And once you kind of understand that, you can make some pretty repeatable and scalable training programs where you can kind of plug and play and drop the widget or the service or the system into the process. And it makes it easy. So that was one of my dream jobs. I absolutely loved working there. Again, training and development is my thing. I ended up leaving that organization, chasing money, as oftentimes people do, and it didn't work out for me at that one. But that led me to another opportunity where I got to sell and provide customer service for a manufacturer of autopsy, mortuary, and animal science equipment. So we were literally selling brain saws and body bags and body coolers and rib snips. We had this little melon baller looking type device that you use to pull eyeballs out of cadavers.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was really interesting conversations.
That is interesting.
But it's the stuff you don't talk about over dinner very often. So there was like a year and a half where I didn't really talk about work all that often.
I sold 5 body saws today. That's right. 10 body bags.
It's crazy.
4 eyeball scoopers.
Right, exactly. But it really led me to realize that it doesn't matter what the widget is.
Yeah.
Because every product is sold, right? And it follows a process. And just because I don't necessarily know what the process specifically is, I do know that it's going to follow one. And I'm definitely a process guy. Process, procedure, systems, I love them. Why? Because they're repeatable. They're scalable. Mm-hmm. So that's where I kind of found myself when I got tired of corporate America. And so I started contracting, and I met up with my predecessor who owned Insignia before I did, Ann Debus. She started Insignia in 2007, on September 11th, 2007, in fact. So
Wow.
kind of a significant date.
Yeah.
So we'll have been in business 17 years as of this September. So I met with her and started working on a few different projects. We did a rollout for Ford Motor Company. They onboarded Kronos. At the time, it was Workforce Central. It's a payroll and timekeeping system. So I went in and I was a trainer with 3 other guys on that software, and we went out to all the plants and helped them transition from their legacy system called Twos, which was basically in DOS, to this new system. We taught all of their frontline supervisors how to do that. Then did go live support. They came to us with issues, and we worked through them and helped them. I worked for Hertz Rent-A-Car for a little while. That was a really fun project because I would fly out to all of their airport locations and teach all of their new hired trainees about their sales process and about all the cars, right? And so I got to spend some time in Alaska. I got to go down to Florida several times,
That's so cool.
all across the eastern seaboard. I was in Chicago. I'm a huge baseball fan, if you can't tell.
Yeah.
I got to go to Chicago and see a White Sox game and a Cubs game back to back. Such a great experience. And let me tell you something about Wrigley Field. Absolutely, without a doubt, one of the most electric stadiums. And it's also one of the oldest. It's crazy.
That's so cool. I have not been there. It's on my bucket list.
Absolutely.
Got to do that tour.
Absolutely do it. And then we were fortunate enough to be working with EY at the beginning of COVID. So they, they're a huge organization, global. They have 365,000 plus people, I think, at this point. And they were doing a lot of their training in person at the beginning of COVID. So they are a tax and CPA kind of accounting firm. That's what they do, is provide tax and advisory services for larger organizations. So at the beginning of COVID, they were doing a majority of their training in person, and COVID shut all that down. So we were fortunate enough to be helping them to update some of their content, just annual tax changes, right? But all of these tax professionals have to have what's called CPE every single year, Certified Professional Education. And it's very common in a lot of industries, right, that are highly regulated. But if they don't get those credits, they can't continue to practice. And so for an organization that does nothing but provide advice and advisory services on taxes, and they have to have certifications, that can shut down a huge organization. So again, we were fortunate enough to be there. They came to us and asked if we could provide what's called virtual producers. It was kind of unknown at the time. A lot of people are doing it now, but what we did at the time was we provided an individual. We taught them how to use Zoom, and they would log on and they would manage registrations for that upcoming event, right? Whatever it was about taxes and really boring accounting stuff, honestly. Everybody's widget is important to them, though. So we provide a resource to manage registrations. Then the day of the event comes. We manage all of the behind-the-scenes logistics, right? You have a producer for our podcast here, right? And people weren't using a producer for that classroom presentation, and it creates such a difference. Because what happens is they want to unrun breakout rooms. Well, if you are a subject matter expert on your tax content, you're probably not a subject matter expert on Zoom and opening breakout rooms and running polling questions, annotations, and playing videos. So we provide that resource into that virtual classroom, and it turns into a production like this, right? It becomes a seamless, almost show, right?
Yeah.
It has some entertainment value, and it draws people back in. If you do as much networking and going to virtual, we'll call them learning events for people, you see some of them that are really good. Right? They're really well put together. There's no lag. There's no delay. Everything's super crisp. And then you go to others and you think that the facilitator themselves might actually be in witness protection. Like they won't come on camera. They're not lit. They don't know where to put their microphone. Like it's really bad.
The voice is garbled.
Right. It's really bad.
I got the image in my head as soon as you said it.
You know. And it's unfortunate that some people don't even recognize that that's them. Right. And so if you're talking about educating people, they're not going to be engaged with just a voice.
Yeah.
They're not going to be engaged in a lecture when they're sitting at home. Their kids could be there, right? There's TV there. The pet wants to, to play for a little while. There's so many distractions that can happen in that virtual environment, right? I could literally pick up my phone just like this, and now I am disengaged from whatever the conversation is that's happening, whatever I'm supposed to be learning.
I literally had a conversation with somebody today that had the cat interrupt him. Somebody came in the room and asked her a question, and then it was like multiple
all of
things.
Those things happen, right? But when you're talking about a virtual classroom, there's so many ways that you can keep people involved. Right, every 3 to 5 minutes, maybe 7 at the most, you have them do something, re-engage with the medium of communication, and it allows you then as the facilitator, because you have this other person that's helping them, launching all of these things behind the scenes when they're ready for it on cue. We have a run a show that now they can focus on their presentation, they can focus on the participants, and the participants are more engaged because they see the facilitator is more engaged. It makes such a difference. So for EY alone, we probably did close to 3,000 events. We had 50 producers on on at the height. Now that we're a couple years out of COVID, I would probably say we're close to 5,000 events under our belt. Now, I won't say every single one of them went perfect.
Yeah.
Some of them went really poorly, especially at the beginning. But I will say this, there's not a single facilitator that ever came back and said, I'd rather do it alone. It doesn't happen, because once you have that experience of working with, the Wizard of Oz, they're back there behind the curtain running everything, it makes it such a seamless show, an engaging experience, that you don't want to do it another way.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about this studio beforehand. It's the same thing. Grant is the wizard behind the curtain, so
imagine doing this by yourself.
Oh, I couldn't anymore.
Right? You couldn't do it anymore. Like, to be at this production level, at this value that you're providing, you can't do it by yourself. And that's another thing with small business owners, right? As you're trying to scale and grow, you get to a point where you just can't do it all yourself. Right? And you have to outsource some of it. You have to find a way to bring in an expert to support what you're doing, because you can only take yourself so far unless you become the subject matter expert in producing a podcast.
Before we get back at it, a quick shout out for our sponsor, Playbook Builder, powered by AI. This show has always been about giving the resources and the tools to small business owners in order to grow and scale your businesses successfully. And so I'm so excited to partner with a company that does just that. If you've listened and heard any of our guests, you've heard talking about building process, developing and training, building culture, are all such important pieces in order to building a great company. Well, Playbook Builder, powered by AI, has come along and revolutionized the game on how you can do that for your team and people. Whether you're onboarding new people, training and developing, continued training and developing, you're looking to scale your business or eventually sell, or most importantly, you're looking to build a legacy as a visionary, Playbook Builder, powered by AI, is able to solve those problems for you. For me as a consultant, I've been able to plug in, and it's so amazing for what I do for clients. I can now leave a legacy. And so, for example, I'm next week training a new hire for a company, and I've been able to build out the next month of her training program using Playbook Builder, powered by AI. The cool thing about the AI, what does that do? What's the hardest part of building out a process? Taking the step by step and making it easy to learn. What the AI piece does is you can actually type in what process it is, whether you want to onboard, if you want to onboard a new employee, type in onboard a new employee and what type of industry you're in, and the AI will put together a foundation for you to build out your playbook. It is absolutely incredible. But don't take my word for it. Head on over to playbookbuilder.com, and these guys have set it up to where you can take this for a test run with no obligations. Plug in what kind of playbook you want to build. If it's a sales training playbook, for example, plug that in the description. And in the description, you can also put in what kind of industry you're in, and then hit generate, and it will generate a playbook for you. Impressed from there, and you can take a 30-day free trial of the playbook system altogether. But so even if you are a subject matter on Zoom in producing it, it's still being the facilitator, and it's like, and I've, like doing just team meetings, right? And like, I got to click share screen, and then I'm trying to navigate through stuff. It's a pain in the butt. So I could see firsthand how people would be like, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah, no, it's huge. And I see some people doing these webinars, these workshops as marketing activities as well, right? I'm talking about that guy who didn't even want to come on camera.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a marketing activity. I've got to ask, who do you think's signing up for that? No one.
Yeah.
No one. That guy's literally wasted his time. And the problem is that he is a subject matter expert. He probably does have a lot of knowledge and wisdom to share, but people aren't going to pay attention because it's not presented well.
It's huge.
It's huge. It's absolutely huge. And another thing that I'll say, and this is kind of just an aside to it, people, for those of you who are doing these workshops, people will absolutely put up with bad video. They will not put up with bad audio.
Yeah.
Period. Right. And it's okay if you're actually having those technical issues, take yourself off camera. It's okay. Take yourself off camera, get your audio right so that they can hear you. There's so many other ways to engage in those virtual environments.
That's huge. Great tip.
It really is.
So then what happened?
Well, then I spoke with Ann. We got, we got a little bit slow. COVID kind of started to taper off a little bit. And so I went to Ann and I said, listen, I want to work with more clients. I really enjoy working with you. I really enjoy the variety of clients that you have and that we can engage with, the different ways we can support them. I'd even like to work more in Insignia if I can. And she said, well, Bernie, I'd like to do you one better. I want to retire. I'm tired of this bullshit. Will you consider buying my company? And I had never really thought about that before. And, obviously I'm here now owning the company. So I said yes.
Spoiler alert.
Right. Yeah. Spoiler alert. But, it was really an honor because she had been looking for a way to kind of divest from the company. And not that she didn't want to do it anymore for the clients, just, you get to the point where you're ready to retire.
Yeah.
And she was looking for someone who would take care of her clients, take care of her business in the way that she would. And that was one of the main things that she said, I want somebody who's going to look after the business in the way that I did and take care of my clients in the way that I did. And if you do that, then, we'll work out a deal and it's yours.
Wow.
And so here I am, the owner of Insignia Training Partners a year and a half later.
Year and a half.
I haven't bankrupted us yet.
That is awesome. So what's the first thing you do after you get it?
It was an evaluation process, right? Because I was handed a fully functioning business,
yeah,
right? So I didn't want to upset the water too much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if I changed too much stuff, a client might leave. I didn't know what I didn't know at the time. So it was really kind of a feeling out, getting to know all of my contractors that were working on the various projects, identifying who the right resources were for various things that I wanted to ultimately roll out. Just a getting to know you process, right? But then I started looking at some of the things that Ann didn't do. One of the things that she prided herself on was that she never spent a dime on marketing or advertising. She was one of those old school folks. It was all word of mouth kind of networking.
Yep.
So that was one thing that I started to do. I started to network more. I started to talk to more people just in general. I didn't really care what they did, right? Because you never know where your next $1 million opportunity is going to come from.
Yeah.
So I started talking, really taking a shotgun approach. And I would say it probably wasn't the most efficient nor effective way of building my business, but I learned a lot and I met a lot of people, right?
Yep.
And it was really interesting. So I started networking, and then I looked at the website and I realized that it was from early 2000s. And the only reason that she had one was because she realized that she had to have one. So, it didn't have any way of collecting leads, right, or getting people to engage with it. It was just purely informational. So we built a new website, and then started doing just some cold outreach, right? Just getting on LinkedIn and messaging people and saying, hey, I see that you're the human resources director at X company. What type of programs or projects are you working on right now where my company may be able to support? So Insignia was again, originally founded to support one project where we provided facilitators and instructional designers, right, back in 2007. So our facilitators are able to go out, they're able to learn about whatever your product is, whatever your service is, and then teach it essentially as if they're you. The instructional designers, on the other hand, they're the ones who are creating all of that content. They create the classroom material. They create that e-learning, that video learning, whatever it may be. But then we started to venture out into all of the other things that you can do in L&D, right? All the extra support pieces, right? Because there's things called an LMS, or learning management system, right? Where you house all of that information and data about all of these people that you're training, and you're able to launch modules from there. So you have to have technical people, you have to have administrators, you have to have voiceover actors to be able to create some of that stuff. Because I don't know if you've watched some of those e-learning things.
Yeah.
Like voice is really big in those, right?
That's so interesting. When I was on your website, I saw voiceover, and I'm like, I was hoping it would come up. I'm like, I wonder what you use that for. That makes so much sense.
Absolutely, because if you have somebody on there who doesn't have an engaging, like imagine Ben Stein, right, from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, facilitating an e-learning. How long do you think you'd be engaged with that? Not long.
Not long. But first you'd be like, this is Ben Stein.
I'll give it a minute. Maybe he's got some good stuff. But, I started thinking about all of those other ways that we can support learning and development. And one of the biggest things that I've started to focus on now, and I'm building a team around it, is actually recruiting for learning and development specifically. Because a lot of my clients will say, we've worked with recruiters before, but they don't really understand all of those individual pieces in learning and development, right? If they say, I need an instructional designer to build a training program, they say, okay, I'm going to go find somebody with an instructional design background. Well, they may not actually dig into, are they a technical, right? Are they developing e-learning? Are they focused on things that are delivered through an LMS? And oftentimes the answer is no, because your standard recruiter is also recruiting for logistics. He's also looking for engineers, and he's also, 17 other positions. So, that was a piece that through all of these conversations that I have with contractors to work on my projects, not everybody wants to work as a contractor. people want a job, and that's okay.
Yep.
Right. So now I'm starting to venture into that world of recruiting and placement, which is an interesting place to play.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting place to play.
And that seems like it aligns really well in the sense that you're developing the programs and bringing in the people.
Yeah, it's, we haven't placed anybody yet on a permanent role. Everything's still contract basis, but we're starting to work in there because the companies that are hiring these folks are probably ramping up, right? That's why they want a learning and development person. And if they are learning and development, if they are trying to ramp up, then they are going to need new trainers, right? They are going to need new programs, right? Maybe it's a new software that they're rolling out. They're going to need those people. Even if they're placing that director of training, they're probably still going to need some trainers. They're probably still going to need instructional designers. And so, yeah, we have access to all of this skilled talent. It just made sense. Well, if somebody needs that type of work, right, that's the job that they want, and these clients are asking for this skilled person, it just made sense.
And you have the people
I
over
have the
here.
people. There's the opportunity. You just got to put them together.
I love that, the problem solving in that.
Just, it's trying to find ways to expand the business because, there is a lot of training being done out there, right? Learning and development is a $27 billion industry in and of itself. Right? People ask me, what industries do you serve? Well, I serve the learning and development industry, but we're able to work in every industry for products and services because, like I said, we can be agnostic when you understand how people learn. It doesn't matter to me what the widget is. Every widget is special to the people who are building it and who are selling it and who are talking about it. But to me, it's a product or service that needs to be taught or learned about. Right. So it doesn't really matter if it's a scalpel for taking people's eyeballs out or if it's a CRM program. The people are going to learn about it ultimately the same at the end of the day.
And how do you, it's so interesting because we talked about the recruiters a second ago, and I've had so much experience with recruiters in the sense of you say that one specific thing and they find that specific thing, but it's that specific thing and not the thing,
that you're looking for. Yeah.
Because it's hard because they don't have that knowledge. How do, with your team and everything, how do you go agnostic into some of these, you're talking about some just different crazy industries you've never heard of. And how do you break into that training and train it like they would?
The truth is that good training facilitation happens as a result of good training design up front. And there are a lot of companies out there that actually have really robust, really good training departments, and they create great content, but they don't always have the subject matter expertise to deliver it, right? So what really allows me to find the right resource is all of this networking that I do, talking to different types of subject matter experts about any ungodly number of things that they may be an expert in, right? Because there is going to be that client like the EY that is a tax professional that is now looking for someone who can teach their content, right? Chewy, the pet food company, we worked with them last year. I don't know anything about pet food other than I feed it to my dog. Right?
Yeah.
But because of Ann's relationship with their director of training, they came to us and said, hey, we developed this leadership development program that we want to run out, right? They're a growing organization. They want to grow globally. They didn't have facilitators in-house that were familiar with leadership content. We have those. They didn't have coaches who were familiar with taking people through a structured leadership development program. So they came to us. Leadership is not something that is industry specific.
Yeah.
It's right. It's something that you learn and that you're taught over time. So we take these leadership facilitators and they go in and they were delivering in person as well as virtual sessions. And then the coaches were meeting with people once every other week throughout the course of the 8-month program. We ended up putting 150 people through that program.
It's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, and it's just about learning what people do and what they're good at and what they're interested in, right? But I will tell you this, learning and development people, they don't do it for the money. Some of us do pretty well, right? I'm in business to make money. I have bills to pay like everybody else. But we're passionate about helping and developing other people, right? Getting them better because that is its own reward, right? It's paying it forward.
It really is.
It is. It's paying it forward. And ultimately, because you're doing good work, good things happen. I mean, when I go out networking now, I don't even think about if I'm going to connect with somebody who's going to help me or serve my business. I go out and I ask, how can I help you? Who can I connect you with? because having that giving approach ultimately is going to get in the long run. It's just the law of reciprocity, right?
Yeah.
Because people are more inclined to help you if you're inclined to help them. So that's my approach now. Now, do I always have a referral for somebody? God, no, I honestly don't. You know, there's plenty of people that I talk to, like, I don't know who to send you to. I'm sorry. But that's always my goal going into it now, is how can I help you? Because people are going to come back around. They're going to say, oh, Bernie, okay, yeah, he helped me. Oh, you have a learning and development program. You're trying to roll out this tree. Yep, I know a guy. Right.
Well, it's cool because there's the referrals, and obviously you can give somebody a direct referral, but there's so many different ways to help somebody.
Yeah.
You know, whether sometimes it's just listening to somebody. You know, because they don't have somebody to listen to, or connecting them with somebody. It may not be a referral for straight business, but connects them to somebody that helps them take that next step to their idea.
That's right. Yeah, I'm newer to networking overall. You know, I would say in the grand scheme of things, I've been, you know, a professional for 20 years ish, and really only been actively networking for about a year and a half, right? Since I started the company, or since I purchased the company. So it's been an interesting learning process for me, right? And both experiencing it and observing myself through it and my own growth and how I approached it. And I think that this is what sets a lot of these networking groups that are out there apart, is the education piece of it. You know, I know you're part of SarasNet.
Yeah.
I'm part of a couple of different groups as well, but they take that education component very seriously, and they teach people how to network. Right?
Yeah.
You're familiar with the pitch slap, right? People come in and they're just immediately trying to sell you something, and they don't care about what you have to say. It is absolutely the worst approach to networking out there.
Oh, it's horrible.
Right? It's absolutely a terrible experience for everybody involved. I was guilty of it at a time too, right? Because you
don't know any better.
You don't know any better, right? You're unconsciously incompetent. You don't know what you don't know.
Well, and you know, I look at people; they're doing it for so many reasons, and most of it's fear and
desperation.
You know, in desperation, you don't know what you don't know, and that's why I'm passionate about what I do from that sales standpoint. And coaching, training, developing is watching people go. Like when I started in sales, it was like going to networking meetings. I drove around my first chamber meeting like for an hour, you know, until I was late. And then I'm like, oh, I can't go in now. I'm late, you know? So, you know, it's like just that nervousness. Or you just throw up, you know, show up and throw up.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and that's the thing, again, is people just don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and so like I've gone to other networking groups where there isn't really an education component, and people just go in there and sure, I introduced myself, we chatted for a few minutes, got to know you a little bit, but nobody took any significant value from that connection or meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably the first 6 months that I did it, I have a few more LinkedIn connections, but I don't remember the conversations. It wasn't significant. There was no structure to it. Nobody walked away with anything. So, you know, for all of you listening out there, if you're going to join a networking group, find one that has an education component and teaches you how to network, because it's really helpful.
It's really helpful. And we talked about SarasNet and the system that Steve set up. It draws a certain type of person that is interested in their growth. Yep. And then it's so much easier to connect and refer those types of people because you're on a different mindset and wavelength, right? You build those relationships and you grow together.
Yeah. You build a language, right?
Yeah.
You build a camaraderie. You understand what each other's doing. It makes it easier to refer and be referred.
Well, and it's so cool because there's so many people that have come and gone out of the group even. And it's like some of them, I don't even know if they're not in the group anymore. They've just, because they've become really good connections and good people that I have in my life, you know. But yeah, it's just when it's been an awesome piece.
Yeah, and really it comes down to a relationship, right? And I think that's the piece that people need to be educated about. It's not just a sales opportunity, right? It's about building a relationship, because if you want to refer and be referred, people have to trust you, and that doesn't happen immediately, right? There has to be a mutual respect, right? And that doesn't always happen immediately, right? You pay somebody respect in an introduction, right? The first time you meet them, but that's also something that's built over time.
Absolutely. And I've drawn so many parallels to like dating, for example, to sales and relationship. It's just relationship building, whether you're selling, whether you're looking for a mate, whether you're whatever it is, it's that same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you show up to a date and tell that person all the reasons why you should get married, you know, we're going to have the best kids. Like I have a great support group. My parents are phenomenal. You know, that person's going to excuse himself to the bathroom and
probably not come back.
Not come back, you know. It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and I think that when you're talking about relationships and taking the time to build them, it's an investment, right? It is an investment, but it's one that pays dividends for a really long time to come, right? Because yes, you can be transactional. I can make $50 on you on this rip right now.
Yeah.
But if I can do it 100 times over because we trust, like, and respect each other, Well, why wouldn't I want that?
So how do you, and you talked about the shotgun approach, and I think this is good for anyone listening, is like, you talk about the shotgun approach. I did the same thing. Because you have to find your people. You have to find, I didn't know what I didn't know. So it's like running out there and trying to find the groups, of finding SiriusNet and finding different things like that. Once you're out there and you're meeting people and you talk about that investment, obviously we don't have the time in the world for everybody as we're meeting everybody, right? And you're talking about LinkedIn connections, and you're like, who don't have this conversation. And since you can serve pretty much anyone, how do you intentionally or selectively choose your relationships and the ones that you're going to invest the most into?
A lot of it now is value based, right? Can I provide value to this person, or can they provide value to me, right? Or is it going to be that symbiotic relationship? And really anybody can, right? Anybody can be a valued referral partner, but you have to be selective, right? You literally can't talk to everybody. I tried.
It's just impossible. Yeah.
It's exhausting. You can't do it. It's impossible. But you start to almost disqualify people.
Yes.
Right. You have to, right? In the sales process, you qualify people, right, to get them closer to your sale. But in the process of networking, you almost have to disqualify. Who am I not going to talk to? Right. Because at the end of the day, a guy who builds websites, will I have conversations with them? Yeah, absolutely. But I have my website built. I have a guy that I work with that I refer to now.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to waste your time or my time at this point.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's that same thing. I asked that question because it's like, people getting into this game, you can go out there and you'd want to make time for everybody. And, and if it's like, you'd have no idea who could be your next $1 million idea. And that's so true. And it's so true that you could technically connect with anybody, and you could technically, build that relationship with anybody, and you can find an opportunity with anybody, but it's strategy to find the people that you connect the best with, right?
Absolutely.
I had a strategy on LinkedIn where I would ask people, as I'm connecting with them, every single person I connected with, I'd send a message. And the last thing I'd say is, what makes a great connection for you? It'd be a short message. What makes a connection great for you? In the answer to that question, help me deselect people.
Yeah.
If that instant was a sales pitch, because it was like a psychological hack. If I'm asking you what makes a great instant sales pitch, boom, they're out. The people that came back was like, I'm looking to grow as a person. I'm looking for, I'm looking to develop long-term relationships, collaborations, mentorships. Like, I'm looking to just find aligned people that I can connect and learn and grow from. Boom. The me too. That's what I'm looking for too. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation. And that's how I'd select. And then, you have that conversation, and do we align? Right. Did we vibe? If this is a painful conversation, I'm probably not going to book another one.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the thing too, right? Like, I really like and focus on working with people that I would like to have a beer with.
Yes.
Right? Like, if I don't feel like I want to have a beer with you after we've had a conversation, then I probably don't want to continue meeting with you. I probably don't want to work with you.
It's a great rule of thumb,
because I have to feel like there is a relationship there. I feel like there has to be some type of relationship there, because, you may be able to check all the boxes.
Yes.
Right? Like, you may be really good at it, but if you're an asshole, I probably don't want to work with you.
I have pretty good luck with not meeting with assholes, but a couple of months ago, I met this guy on LinkedIn, and he is an influential guy, and he connected with me and sent me this message, and like, he wanted to meet with me, and he could connect me with these big visionaries across the country that he's kind of connected with. Like, great, sounds awesome. And then he was the biggest jerk. Like, I got on and like, he didn't even talk to me. Like, he just kept looking away, like around his yard. It was the most awkward, bizarre conversation I've ever had. And I said, why are we here? And he was like, started insulting me. It was like the most bizarre conversation. It was like, all right, well, that was a 10-minute conversation. I'm like, we don't need to be even connected anymore. We both removed each other from our connections. It's like, whatever that was, like, I don't know if it was me. I don't know if it was him. It was probably both of us. It was oil, water. I don't know. But
sometimes people are just not part of your tribe.
Yes.
Not even a little bit. And that's okay.
That's okay.
That's okay.
That's okay. It's okay. I didn't beat myself up about it. It was just, I went home to my wife. I'm like, that was one of the most bizarre conversations I've ever had. And it was like, and I don't have to have another one. It's amazing. And I have a story I can tell at some point.
Exactly. And that's the cool part too, though. Like just as much as you could not connect with that person, you might actually really connect with that person.
Yes.
right? And you may find that you have everything in common and your kids are all the same age and you went to the same school. Like there's so many different ways that you can connect with people and ultimately build a relationship with that you may not have otherwise, right? By simply saying yes to some of those conversations that you wouldn't.
You broke it down so well. It's like, it's a common problem, especially as you're starting off in entrepreneurship or you're starting off in business development period, whether you're a sales professional or whatever you're doing. Yeah. It's like, how many, who do I set meetings with?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, especially up front, it's hard to say no and even to identify who you should say yes to, right? And you almost have to go through those paces, right? That cycle of performance, if you will, and figure out who are worthwhile to talk to and who's not. And once you have 200 or 300 or 500 conversations, then you're like, okay, I know who I want to talk to.
And that's huge. And it's a journey of becoming self-aware. And you talked about that earlier, is becoming self-aware. Who do you vibe with? And it usually is a person. It may not be an industry,
right?
But it's a type of person.
Exactly. And, like I said, for my business, that's what it's about. It's about being able to relate to the individuals that I'm going to be working with, and even the projects, because, again, I don't really care what the widget is. But if you're an asshole and it's going to be really difficult to work with you on this project for a year.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to. My grandma told me a long time ago, not all money is good money, and she's not wrong.
She's not wrong. She's not wrong. That you're going to work harder. Mm-hmm. So and most of the time those people are the ones that beat you up on price too. Right. So exactly. They usually have the aligning traits.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, it's worth it to design a business where you get to work with the people that feed back into your energy, that light you up, that you're like, I love training and developing these people.
Yep. And that, honestly, that's one of the side bonuses of what I do, because, like I said, I like pouring into people. I recognized that a long time ago. I really enjoyed learning and development, training, building training programs. But now as the owner of this company, I get to work with people who are passionate like me about learning and development. And all they want to do is facilitate classes.
That's
all
awesome.
They want to do is build training programs. All they want to do is coach. And I get to help them do that.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's really
that's exciting. So it's like, that feels like that's constant energy moving and constant just ideas as you guys are.
It is, and when you're talking about people who are all about learning and training and making people better, that's what they're about. And you can't help but get better because you're around those people, right? They elevate you, you elevate them, and you just keep growing together. It's fantastic.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I just finished the book, The Outliers, by Malcolm Gladwell.
I've not.
It's really, really good. It's the study of how people become successful. It's a study of highly successful people. And so he breaks down the science of how Bill Gates became Bill Gates. And it's like, the whole premise of the book is that never trust a person that says they're a self-made man. Mm. Nobody's self-made.
Nobody is self-made.
And it broke down the series of luck in people that had to come into Bill Gates' life in order for Bill Gates to become Bill Gates. And it's not just Bill Gates, it's so many different stories of just different people, whether they became successful or they didn't. And right. He breaks down the science of it. But the whole premise is it takes other people.
Absolutely, it does.
It takes other people.
Absolutely, it does. That reminds me of a quote. Sir Isaac Newton said, "If I have seen further, it's because I've stood on the shoulders of giants." Mm. Right. And the reality is that everybody needs somebody, even if it's just your mother when you're a baby, right?
Yeah.
Getting you to that point where you can take care of yourself. There was somebody in the process that helped you to get to where you are today. For me, I've had a lot of those people in my life, as I'm sure many people do. My leader, Mark Miller at Quicken Loans, if he hadn't recognized that I had that skill set, who knows what I'd be doing now? Maybe I'd be selling cars, or maybe I'd still be selling mortgages. Who knows? But I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm passionate about, right? And so I think that people, even if they say that they're self-made, they recognize that there was somebody there. There was somebody there that helped them, that gave them that one extra step up.
What's the premise? And I love. That's why I even do this show. I love digging back and I love asking you these questions and going through this and and understanding how you became you, yeah. Right? And so the book was really fascinating, but breaking down and understanding that leader, becoming self-aware and understanding the people that impacted you, it's a difference maker.
Absolutely. Because that little piece of advice that you may give to somebody, that may be the catalyst for their success.
And you don't even know it.
You don't even know it. It was actually really interesting. I connected with somebody on LinkedIn. Gosh, it was about a month or two ago now. And the reason that I connected with her was because we worked at the same company that BPO that I told you about. We worked at the same company over a decade ago now. And I saw that she had moved into learning and development. She was a call center agent before, and I think she also ran the front desk for a little while. But I reached out to her because she's in training now, so it was honestly selfish. I said, "So what are you doing in learning and development? There now. How is there any way that I can help? I'd love to be able to provide some support. Are you guys hiring any trainers?" And we, went further down the rabbit hole, and I asked her, I was like, do you actually remember, me working there? And she's like, "Oh God, yes, I remember working with you there. You were in the training room right behind when I was sitting at the front desk. I could hear you were the most energetic trainer that I ever experienced."
What? That's amazing.
Why? And I didn't even really know who she was, but that was the impact without me even knowing that I had on somebody there. And that is really cool as well.
It's so
because
cool.
you don't even know. You don't know who you're impacting, right? Because you and I are having this conversation right now. It's just you and me one-on-one. But this is going to go out to other people.
Absolutely.
Right? People are going to listen to this and people are going to watch it. And who knows what we've said here that may inspire somebody to go and do something great.
And who knows when that will be? This will be up on the internet until
the end of time.
Until the end of time, right? You'll be able to access this forever. And so this could be 20 years from now, somebody's listening to this and has that one spark thought.
That's right.
So if that's you right now, fuck yeah.
That's fine. I'm good with it.
We'll take it.
And that's the interesting thing. Like we're at a point where we can hold on to and transfer all of this knowledge, right? In this age of technology, even 15 or 20 years ago, we would look at these quotes from all of these famous people and just get that glimpse into their mindset, their perspective. But now we're at a point where we can have these type of conversations and truly pick people's brains, and lay it out there for everybody to know. We're
living in a time that's the greatest resources possible. And we talked about this at the beginning of the podcast, and we were talking about the 90s albums back in the day. Right. Somebody drops a 2 Live Crew comes out and they're on the Donahue show, right? That happened. And that's a really awkward clip that floats out there. But they're on the Donahue show, they're on Good Morning America, they're on the Arsenio Hall, they do the tour. Now we as everyday people get to do this and create our own content, our own wavelength to attract people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that people are starving for that. I think that people want to have connections. They want to have community. They want to find their tribe, right?
Absolutely.
The people that they connect with and can understand. So I'm a big fan of, now that I'm into it, right? Now that I'm listening to podcasts, now that I'm participating in them, I'm really into it. I think it's really, really cool because you can really get down to who a person is through some of these conversations, what they actually believe.
You do.
You know what I mean? And you don't always get that in some of the superficial conversations that you have.
You really don't. That's even the whole intent of this, is being able to meet an entrepreneur, somebody out there making it happen, a difference maker. And this is a raw conversation. This is not scripted in any way possible. Right. We didn't know any of this that we'd be talking about.
No.
I mean, maybe some of it, but
I had an idea we were going to talk a little bit about, me and my business, but no, this is not a scripted conversation at all.
Right. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what it's all about. It's just because in the beginning it was sitting at the table and I was going out and meeting all these entrepreneurs. I was just picking their brain because I wanted to learn from them. Yeah. Right. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. I need content. They need content. I'm learning so much from them. What if I bring a camera with me?
Yeah.
And that's
absolutely
how it unfolds.
Right. And I mean, how many of these podcasts have you had now?
This is 121.
So 121 times you have helped someone else get their message out.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Give or take, because there were so many pilot podcasts before this one, or pilot things that I did. Yeah. But of Coffee and Grit, there's been that 121. Yeah. And it's turned into amazing relationships. Yeah. This is what you talk about. Maybe I don't have a referral to give to somebody, but I can bring somebody on this that it can help them create content that they can use to bring in business. That, it's just that's what I love, giving people that gift. Yeah. It's one of my favorite things, to be like, man, let's have you on the podcast. We had a kick-ass conversation. Let's have you on. I love cutting the clips, and when they're coming out, which you're going to be a quick turnaround. We're filming, you're out this Thursday. So everybody that's listening, we're out, but you're going to be out this Thursday. So quick turnaround, and I'll be blowing you up with all the stuff That's awesome. It's cool to be able to go out there and do that and give that gift to people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the people who truly appreciate it, they're going to come back to you right? And they're going to say thank you first and foremost,
Yeah.
right? But they're also going to now refer you, right? And they're also going to talk to you about whatever it is that your expertise is because you've poured into them. It makes a difference.
And the biggest thing, like I think I got to be clear on this. The biggest like gift that people that are on the show can give me is going out and taking the content they get out of it and using it. Because so many people are missing a huge opportunity. I have a client that I just recently worked with that was on the show, and then we started working together a couple months later, and she was like, I have no idea what to post. Like I'm floundering. She was posting it 4 or 5 times a week and not getting anything coming to her, or people saying, hey, I want to, what I'm interested, right? It's like you had a phenomenal conversation on our podcast. It was like an hour and 15 minutes long. There's constant stories that you told. There's constant content. Like you can take the videos and post it, create a post from that, do the video. You can take a picture, create a whole long form content from just a story you told in the podcast. We could come up with a podcast, and we came up with a plan for her social media where she was posting only 3 times a week for the past 2 months, and her social media was increased by 500%, and she was booking discovery calls because it's telling that story. It's bringing people in. It's helping people go, oh, that's what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's interesting. When I first started having some of these networking meetings, I really struggled with explaining what I do, how it's beneficial to them as an organization, and how to even refer to me. Like part of the education piece is like literally, how do you refer me?
Yeah.
Right. People were asking me, so you're a personal trainer? You do exercises? Like, I don't understand. How do you help businesses?
Yep.
And so, part of that process is refining your pitch too, right? And sometimes having someone to help with that process makes all the difference.
It is, and you can always refine it, but it is you hit the nail on the head. Is the relationship is the long game, and it is. Now this is I met you I heard you give your pitch in SiriusNet, and I got what you did, and I was like, oh, I need to meet, have a conversation, and then, but each time now we've talked, I've learned more and more about you to where I could now go and have a conversation about you to somebody.
Exactly. And that's the key with networking, right? Because if you're going in it for transactional for that one shot,
yes,
you're not going to get very far, right? Because you don't even know what the other person does. They may not likely know even what you do. So, okay, great. You sell insurance. Cool.
I like to know why.
I know 72 guys that sell insurance as well, right?
Right.
Why do you sell insurance? Why is it important? Why do you do it, right? Tell me about your family, right? What are you trying to grow or do? I mean, is insurance really what you're truly passionate about? Let's talk about what you're passionate about. Build a relationship.
I love that you're a questions guy. Like even on your website, you have the key questions, of what is it? The analyze, the first step in your process, and going through, and it's like those questions, like those are phenomenal questions to just even understand, are we doing the right thing?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you have to understand what you're doing, right? And the only way that you actually can drill down is by asking good questions, right? I mean, and it seems so simple and so stupid almost, right? You have to ask questions really to figure out what
it sounds so stupid and so simple that people look at you funny when you ask them to do it.
Right. And honestly, that's a skill too, right?
Yeah.
That's a skill too, being able to ask the right questions at the right times to get to the answers that you need. I'm certainly not perfect at it, but I figured out that I need to ask these questions in order to get to the answer of my project. Otherwise, I'm not going to give them the outcome that they want. But that's a key, right? That's another skill set that people have to learn.
Yep. I love working from the sales standpoint and being a sales trainer, sales coach. And they're like, a salesperson's in front of me and they're like, oh, I don't know any of these. So who does know? Probably so-and-so. Like, so what could you ask him?
Right.
And they come up with it all by themselves. It's like the realization all by themselves.
And that's the thing too, is some people have the answers.
They do.
To those questions.
Yeah.
Most of the time they have the answers. It's just helping them to get there.
When you say go ask some questions, it sounds really simple that it sounds stupid. Mm-hmm. And 2, people are really, really uncomfortable asking people questions. They feel like they're like Columbo or like they're really nosy people if they ask more than 3 or 4 questions. Mm-hmm. So you have to get past that.
And some people feel dumb.
Yes.
Right. They're like, I don't want to ask so-and-so a question because they'll think I'm dumb.
Yeah.
But you're never going to have the answer unless you go and ask the question.
And then guess what? They're probably going to think you're dumb.
Right, exactly. I mean, this guy is the best salesperson on the team, and you haven't asked him what he says when the client says this. Okay. Okay.
Let's look at our resources. Who can I ask? If you're struggling with something, who could help me?
That's right. That's right.
As opposed to why am I an idiot? Like, who could help me?
Exactly. Exactly. And it brings us again back to networking, right? Is finding who can help you, who can we help?
Yeah. What I found from all the sales organizations I've been a part of and led is that top salesperson usually likes helping when somebody comes to them because they have big egos.
Exactly.
And you can stroke their ego.
Absolutely.
Like they love like being able to, they'd sit with somebody for a while.
Absolutely. They love it. You know, and what's interesting too is oftentimes those people are very good at what they do. And they love to talk about how they do it, but they also generally do it differently than everyone else.
Yes, that's the problem.
So making it repeatable, is difficult.
Yeah.
But you know that's why you have best practice meetings, right? You bring your sales group together. You talk about specific problems. You ask those questions, right? And you start digging into why are they more successful than everyone else? Because I will tell you that sometimes it's just a personality trait, right? That individual, they're just really, really good at connecting with people.
It's like Michael Jordan and the traits he had to become Michael Jordan. For someone to say, "What did you do?" You could explain the things that you did in training. Mm-hmm. You can't explain that other thing that makes that job easier.
Exactly.
Sometimes fair or not. Some people are born with that.
Exactly. Some people are born like my cousin. He sells cars.
Yeah.
He has the highest front and back end gross on every single sale in the entire dealership every single month.
Yeah.
On every car he sells.
Yeah.
And they are always asking him, "What are you doing different? What's going on?" And it's nothing that he's doing any differently than anyone else. He's just more personable. He has a conversation. He gets to know his people.
Yep.
It's not transactional, even though it is a transaction.
It's a transaction.
That's all it is.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's and then you have some people that just have relationships. Mm-hmm. I had a guy that just his dad had a lot of relationships, taught him how to. I don't know what it is inherently, but he just kind of like had this inherent thing that he just knew how to take connections. Yeah. He wasn't even personable or nice. Like he was not a guy that you'd want to go have a beer with. Like he was like just, I dreaded getting, it was like one of those things, but he would just crush it every single month because he had these core relationships with like the board of trustees at Michigan State University or, just different things where he could crank sales out really easily.
Yeah, absolutely. And it may not have been a conscious thing, but he was able to build a network and then work with those people.
Yep.
Right. Because he knew them. Now he had more opportunities.
Yep. And he's relentless.
Well,
with those people, they have traits that other people may not be able to repeat, but anybody can do sales anybody can do sales no matter what personality you have.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a hat that you can wear. Like, me personally, I didn't love sales.
Yeah.
Could I do it? Absolutely, I could do it. I had all the skill sets to do it. I'm doing it now in business development for my company, right? But not everyone is inherently good at it. Not everybody loves it. Not everybody's passionate about doing it. And I get that, right? But everyone has the skills to do it.
You're probably doing it in some form or fashion as far as just
we sell ourselves
people.
every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Every day.
Exactly. So you don't have to necessarily sell a widget, but it's like getting comfortable with you're probably selling something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And more often than not, it's selling themselves because it's the relationship that sells.
Yeah.
We buy from people we like.
Absolutely.
That's it.
That's it. And so that's why, like, when it comes down to like all the widgets at the end of the day, it's because it's people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all about the people. I mean, the widget itself, it serves a purpose, right? There's a reason that you're going to go and buy a fork. It's because you're going to use it to eat later, right? There's a purpose behind it. But who you buy that fork from is a result of who you feel most comfortable with. Maybe it's IKEA, maybe it's Walmart, maybe it's Target, right? But for whatever reason, one of those brands gives you the warm and fuzzy. And it's the same thing with people.
Yep. Yeah. Secret to business is just that know, like, trust.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's the secret to life.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to claim to be a guru, but that's the secret to life.
It really is.
It is. It's all about the relationships, because if you surround yourself with good people, life is going to be good, even when times are turbulent.
It goes back to the book.
That's right.
It's like those people. Did they have a certain amount of intelligence and capabilities and skills? Yes. But it was like the people that surrounded them that gave them certain advantages that other people didn't have.
That's exactly right. I figured out how to leverage the network.
Man. So what's next?
For me, it's really about growing the business now. I've brought on a recruiter. His name's Tony. He's out there doing business development and recruiting activities. So we're trying to find as many talented resources as we can. I'm probably still having too many networking meetings, to be honest with you, but it's all for the right purpose. So it's really growing some of the individual aspects of my business out now, right? Because from a project perspective, we do pretty good. We stay pretty busy most of the time, but I would love to be able to find some of these folks that I'm not able to contract with some positions. And a lot of the layoffs that have happened recently are like me back in 2008, the learning and development people, because they're not making revenue for the organization. The Metas, the Amazons, all those layoffs that happened recently.
Yeah.
Those are my people.
Wow. So you're kind of in a unique position, unique opportunity.
Yeah. There's a ton of people out there in the marketplace that are looking for this type of work. And there's actually still a lot of job postings out for this type of work. But for whatever reason, the right people aren't connecting with those jobs. So I want to help them to be that catalyst.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. What a good timing with that service.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's the right thing to do. I talk to these people all the time, and they're so passionate about what they do. To see somebody who is passionate about helping other people, not able to help themselves, that's crushing. Wow. You know? So if I can help them in any way, connect them to the right person, I mean, obviously I'm in business to make money, but if I can connect them with somebody who's ultimately going to lead them to their next job, cool. I would rather provide that support than make a buck. But if I can make a buck doing it, then obviously I'm going to do that.
Because that's really like how the best businesses are formed, is when you can solve a problem. And the common theme of the majority of the guests that have been on here is that they've found that the services they have in their business have kind of formed in the relation of their experiences. So you talk about, again, you being laid off, you being in that same position, and now you finding a solution that gives back to that group of people. Yeah. That's so cool.
And that's an interesting thing too, is a lot of the people who are just getting into networking, they think to themselves, what can I provide, right? My network's 100 people. I've, only had 2 sales jobs. One of them I was selling cell phones, and, now I'm selling plots at a cemetery. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. But,
I literally did have a guy that sold cell phones and sold plots at cemeteries. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
But they
salespeople, the experices that you have.
Yeah, exactly.
Your resume is pretty intense.
Like I said, I sold body bags. Man.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's figuring out how you provide value, and it may not necessarily be that they're going to connect me to the person that I'm looking for, but what they need to do is focus on, how do I help the person that I was 2 years ago or 5 years ago, because there is somebody else out there that still is in that situation, looking to be where you are today.
Yeah.
Right. So are you going to be able to help everybody? No, you just can't. That's not the way the world works. But can you help somebody? Yep, sure can. Right. When you figure out how you do that, you'll be a lot more successful.
That's so cool, man. Bernie, I'm so glad that you waded the traffic and came down here today. This has been a phenomenal conversation. We talked about you've mentioned a lot of really stellar clients, Shuey, and some of the clients you had. What are but you've talked about kind of being working with a lot of different companies. What are some good types of companies to reach out to you?
We really don't.
Not types of companies, because we've talked about that, but
I'll give you a couple of examples. I mentioned some of the larger organizations that we've worked with. We provided instructional design and facilitators, and we do virtual production. When you're talking about like small and medium-sized businesses, as an example, the offering kind of has to change. So what we're able to provide some of those folks is, maybe they have that subject matter expertise that they haven't really figured out how to share, or even how to train.
Yeah.
Right. Because a lot of times in your smaller organizations, 10, 15, 20 people, they don't have the revenue to support an FTE for HR, let alone just to focus on training.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So those organizations, they can come to me, and again, we can design their training so that any professional facilitator can step in and deliver it as if they're you. Maybe they're looking for resources to train their people on things like Excel and PowerPoint and Word and Outlook, right? We have some out-of-the-box trainings that we're able to provide for them as well, so that they don't have to spend the money to create custom training. And then you have your solopreneurs, which we've really started to focus on a lot, right? I mentioned that virtual production, people doing webinars.
Yep.
So in the last year and a half, we started working with an author who does about a dozen webinars a week. We started working with a change management consultant who also does about, well, he doesn't do a dozen. Actually, we haven't started delivering his yet. We've started to develop his program. And then I work with a leadership development facilitator who's got 5 clients of his own that he does regular workshops with as well. So we started working with a lot of those solopreneurs that are providing services to groups of people.
Yeah.
And we're able to support them on that virtual aspect.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's a perfect description. Like, it has my wheels turning. And again, it's like, how do you refer people, right? And it's those situations. It's not necessarily the business or the industry. People are asking me, like, what industry do you work in? It's not necessarily the industry.
Yeah. It's really what do they need to learn?
Yeah.
Right. Because that's where we help. Is if you have someone who needs to learn something, Insignia can support it. Doesn't matter to me what your widget is.
So cool, Bernie. Thanks again for coming down. It's been an awesome conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.